Hello chess friends! If you're a regular viewer of my channel, you know that I make a lot of videos playfully suggesting that perhaps Magnus Carlsen is something other than human based on his incredible chess ability, but in this video I'm going to show you a very rare example of a non-blitz game. This was a rapid game from a couple years ago with Jan Nepo in which Carlsen got absolutely crushed in the opening, forgetting his theory and blundering into a completely lost position by move 7. How could this happen to our great and beloved Magnus? Well, here's an explanation from the man himself.
I just completely blanked. I couldn't remember what to do. I don't know, I sat thinking for 5-6 minutes and my mind just was blank. There was just nothing.
So after hearing that, I know you're dying to see all the gruesome details, so without further ado, here is the game in all of its catastrophic glory. Carlsen begins the game with e4. Nepo responds c5, the Sicilian defense, and for the next 3 moves, we have the most popular variation of all time, with knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6. The main line of the Sicilian defense, black is attacking the pawn on e4. By far the most popular move here for white would be knight c3, defending the pawn, but Carlsen plays bishop c4, which is not a popular move, because it sacrifices the pawn on e4, which Nepo gladly takes, with knight takes e4. But white is not just simply a pawn down, there is compensation with the move queen h5. This is what Carlsen plays, attacking f7 with 2 pieces, to which black does not have a lot of good responses to. There's only really 2 reasonable defensive moves. Nepo plays the best one, he plays e6. The only alternative would be d5, just giving the pawn right back, and then after bishop takes d5, you can get away with g6, hitting the queen. If the queen goes to e5 with the double attack on the rook and the knight can drop back to f6 and block. And white is better here. You got 3 pieces in the center of the board. White's development is better. The best move here for white, I guess, is knight to b5, threatening to come into c7 like this. And then black should play knight a6 to stop that. And the engine says white is better here. Maybe not winning. But e6 gives black a dead equal position. Let's look at g6 right here though, in case someone thought that was playable. Here you cannot get away with this because there's queen d5. Hitting the knight and hitting f7. Not a good way to defend both. So e6 is definitely the best move here. And at this moment, on move 7, Magnus Carlsen blunders. Before I show you his blunder, I'm going to show you the correct move for white. White has only one move to equalize the position and justify his pawn sacrifice, and that move is bishop to b5 check. We want to remove this bishop's access to e6 because we want to take on e6 and we don't want the bishop to recapture. So here black is in check and he only has a couple options. The best move is knight to d7. You want to hang on to this bishop. I'm going to show you why. After knight takes e6, the best move for black here is knight to f6. A counterattack on the queen. You couldn't take out the knight because that pawn's pinned, in case you didn't notice. The black queen's hit, so what happens in this line is knight takes queen, knight takes queen. Now this knight is trapped. That knight needs to get away, or white's going to lose and just be a piece down. But fortunately, there's bishop takes d7 check. Now if the king takes, now you can take on f7 and escape that way. The better move for black would be bishop takes d7, but this takes protection off b7, so here knight takes b7. The knight's going to get away. Now here white is a pawn up, but because black held on to that bishop, he's got bishop c6, hitting the knight, hitting g2. Once that knight moves, there's bishop takes g2, the material has equalized, and the position's about equal. This variation here is probably why this is not a popular line for white. It just allows black easy equality. Now I want to show you what happens if black plays queen to e7 instead of knight to f6 right here. Because at this point, white would be lost if he didn't have knight c7 check. Because if the knight moved somewhere without check, there's the threat of knight to g3, discovered check by the queen, which would pick up the white queen. So the fact that knight c7 comes with check is the only thing that saves white. The king must move, and now white has knight to d5, attacking the queen. So if this move's played, the discovered check can just be met by the knight capturing the queen, and white is going to be okay. I wanted to show you that because queen e7 is what is played in the game a couple moves after Carlsen's blunder. And what is his blunder? Instead of playing the correct bishop b5 check, he skips that move and he just goes straight for knight takes e6. Now this is a whole nother story, because the bishop has access to e6. Unlike the previous variation that we just looked at, after bishop takes e6, black is a piece up. Of course, white does have bishop takes e6. Remember, this pawn is pinned to the king. It cannot capture the bishop. But here, the move played in the game, queen to e7. This is now winning for black. If you were to try to get this bishop out of danger with bishop b3, now we can see the problem with knight g3 check. Hitting the queen, if the queen could go to e2, everything would be okay, but unfortunately the knight's covering that square. So Carlsen knows that bishop is not going to remain on the board, so he says, I'll take a pawn. Nepo captures with the queen. Now Carlsen plays queen to e2. This knight's pinned. If he could get an f3, he could get his piece back, but Nepo breaks the pin with queen e7. Carlsen castles, and at this point, he's only got one pawn for the lost piece, and he does not have near adequate compensation. Nepo plays just very solidly and safe, moves the knight back to f6, offering the queen trade. Of course, Carlsen doesn't want to trade queens when he's down in material, so he plays bishop e3. We got knight c6, knight c3, d5, looking to play d4 possibly. Carlsen plays queen to f3. Nepo continues to play very safe with castles long. If you try d4 here, this is still winning for black, but things could start to get a little complicated with rook f to e1. Now if you were to take the knight here, there'd be a discovered attack on the queen, who's pinned to the king by the rook. You could take on e3, and after rook takes e3, you can put the knight in the way, and black is still winning here, but this is just unnecessarily risky with this open file to the king. Nepo says, I'm going to play it safe, and I'm just going to castle, get my king off of that open file. Carlsen places his rook opposite Nepo's queen. The queen just gets out of the way of that. We got knight b5, hitting a7. a6, defends, and gives the knight a kick. Carlsen wants to complicate things now, so he plays a4, hoping for a takes b5, a takes b5, when the rook has an open file towards the black king, but black can just defend with knight b8 and is still winning. But again, this could be unnecessarily risky, so Nepo just goes for queen g4 instead, hoping for a queen trade. You want to trade as much material as possible when you're up in material, particularly the queens. And at this point, Carlsen doesn't really have any good alternative than to trade queens, because this queen doesn't really have a square to run to out of the view of the black queen. So queen takes g4 check, knight takes g4. Carlsen plays bishop to b6, hitting the rook, trying to mix things up, allowing the knight to be taken on b5. A takes b5. This knight's hit. The rook's still hit. Knight gets out of danger. Bishop takes d8. King takes d8. Now Nepo has two pieces for a rook, plus a whole extra piece. So Carlsen is down even more material, but he's got some very active rooks, and he's hoping to maybe trick Nepo somehow. He kicks the knight first, gets the rook in here to a7, hitting the pawn on b7. It's defended. Now we got rook to e6, looking to kick the king back with b6 check. Bishop c5. Add some defense to that square, but Carlsen just plays that move anyway, sacrifices the pawn to draw the bishop away from the defensive e7 so he can play rook e7 check. Okay, the rooks are infiltrating here. The king moves, and now he's got rook takes b7, attacking the bishop. He's hitting this pawn. Maybe if he takes enough pawns out, he can somehow get away with a draw. But here Nepo finds a very nice move, knight b to d7. Just blocking the communication between the rooks. This rook is now undefended, so it needs to move. Carlsen grabs the pawn on g7, but after king c6, he has to resign because this rook is trapped. So a very noble attempt by Carlsen to try to save his game after he made a terrible blunder on move 7. But unfortunately, Nepo was up to the task of converting his material advantage and didn't take any risks, which led to Carlsen's resignation on move 28. So I hope you enjoyed that game, illustrating Carlsen's human side and the fact that even the world's strongest players can make horrific blunders very early in the opening, especially if they're playing something very sharp and they forget their theory. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe to the channel for more top quality analysis like this coming to you soon.